Hello, welcome to Beyond Bulimia. I'm Malise and I'm going to share with you through this series all the details of my 20-year painful adventure with food. Now, this series is going to address body, mind, and spirit, essential components to what led me to my healing, my wholeness, and my integration. So the reason I'm doing this series is because I didn't have this when I was going through my struggles. I want to be able to offer the whole pie for people, not just a part of it, which was what I came up against often when I was looking for answers. So please subscribe to this series, and I promise you, you will benefit greatly. If you are someone suffering from bulimia right now, if you have a loved one suffering from bulimia, this is important. This is important information. So watch on to find out in today's episode who I am, what I can offer you, why you want to watch this series, and all of the details of what I'll be covering throughout. There's going to be a lot of information that I think is integral to finding help, wholeness, and healing, and getting out the other side of bulimia. So enjoy my series. Hi there, I'm Malise Banks, and it is with a little trepidation that I start my first episode of this series I've decided to do. I think it's a long time coming. For 20 years, I went through what is well known as a very hidden dis-ease of the mind, and it becomes a very big problem for the mind and the body and the spirit. And so for 20 years, I grappled with trying to find answers, and no one seemed to be able to provide those for me. So why am I doing this series? Well, I know that I could have really done with somebody to talk about this stuff I'm about to talk to you about. I could have really found it helpful to have someone like myself to share this journey that no one seemed to understand. So who am I? Well, I am a 42-year-old woman, clearly, who lives in Australia on the Gold Coast, which is like a subtropical area of Australia. I have a husband and a cat. I don't have children. And I value highly my own mental, emotional, and spiritual growth. It wasn't always this way, and I attribute most of my healing to the fact that I value this now, and I sought answers that weren't being provided to me in the mainstream wellness model. So I can tell you that I grew up in Melbourne, Australia, which is right down south. I was pretty shy as a little kid. I was the oldest of 5 children. So I was the firstborn. I had 2 very interesting parents, very different from each other. One an adventurer from Canada, the other one a quite gentle nurse, born in Australia. And, you know, I was brought into a religious household, Christianity. It was quite a strict upbringing I had. I will go into all of this where it's relevant to bulimia. And I was moved around a lot. I went to 6 different schools throughout Victoria, and then we moved up to Queensland. And then as an adult, I moved around a lot again. As a independent woman, I still chose to continually move around. Now, that's going to be part of my bulimia story too, because it is relevant. Now, for me, food was a comfort, and I know you can relate to this. Growing up as a little girl, being the oldest of 5, I was the guinea pig, I was the example, and food being something that was a commodity that had to be provided to the household was something that we highly valued. We weren't rich, we were, you know, just a working class family. And I was used food very early as escapism from, I guess you could say, being a very highly sensitive child. I that has never left me. I've always been very highly sensitive, empathic. I've picked up on energies around me, and I found being the oldest child of 5 kids really difficult. Household of 7 was extremely overwhelming for me, and moving schools all the time was extremely ungrounding for me. And I didn't have any safe relationships, which is another theme I'm going to talk about in this series, which is very important. And so I found that I didn't develop my own self-autonomy because I was very heavily enmeshed with the family. We had requirements and commitments as children. We had to keep structure because of the chaos with that many people in the house, with sometimes very little resources. It was survival for me. My childhood was survival. I don't feel that I had a lot of genuine space to be fully myself or find out who that was. And I had to do that much later in life. And so this is a big contribution to why I used bulimia as a mechanism for control. And I'm going to talk about control as well in this series. And so now as an adult, I always knew that I was very heavily interested in the mind. And for most of my adult life, in my 20s and 30s, I worked in careers that were not related to this, weren't even related in any way to my true passions and interests. I just tried to fit in. And that's another theme for bulimics. And I tried to fit in, and I didn't fit in. And I was like a square peg in a round hole. Everywhere I tried to put myself and place myself in life. And so I had a heavy reliance on escapism, and that's another theme. And I went into drugs and alcohol. Food was just the beginning, like the gateway to escapism through substances. And that turned into escapism through relationships. And I became a very good codependent partner in my relationships. And so that's another theme. So you're going to start to see themes you're going to relate to, I know, if you are someone suffering with bulimia. And so as I moved into adulthood, I knew something was wrong because I went through these roller coasters of emotions, and I would go into shutdowns and shutouts and burnouts. And I didn't realize that a lot of these issues were also related to social anxiety, which is another theme here for bulimia. And social anxiety for me was a massive part of what shaped my choices in life so that I could fit in. And being one of 5 kids, you kind of have to learn some social skills to get around. And so I was very good at masking, and I still am very good at masking. That's part of my journey still. And so all of this taught me that I felt imbalanced, and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to identify the problem in my life. And for the longest time, I was in denial about bulimia. And see, that's the problem. We don't actually address the problem when we don't admit to it. And so for a lot of us struggling with bulimia, we don't want to look at it. We don't want to say, oh, this is actually out of hand now, and I can't do it anymore. Because the thing with bulimia is we can survive through it, but we're just barely functioning. And so we can get through life hiding, and that's another theme, lying, hiding about ourselves and what we really do behind closed doors. And it makes us feel tremendous shame and guilt. But we get through life. We learn to cope. We learn to accept that as part of our life to survive. Survival is another theme here for bulimia. And so I will introduce more of who I am throughout this series, which will have quite a few episodes because there's a lot in depth that I'm going to go into, because I fully believe that if you're struggling with bulimia, you need to hear someone else's story who has got through it, and who recognized what was missing in the mainstream model of health, and who is knowing deep down there's something more. There's something I'm missing. Why can't I get better? And so I'm going to share a lot more about me, but that is just a little introductory. Right now, I work in a career that I love and I'm aligned with finally in my life. And this took a fair bit of time to attune to my own internal guidance system and get to know me. Know thyself is the wisdom here. And this is where a lot of bulimics struggle, because we don't know who we really are. And so that's a huge part of the healing journey. And so today I'm confident that I know who I am. And there's always more to learn. The journey never ends. But I am aligned now in my career, and I work as a intuitive coach and counselor. So I have embraced my sensitive and empathic abilities and my passion with the mind. And I've integrated that into body and spirit as well, two essential components to healing and health and wholeness. And I help clients individually. I also run occasional workshops, and I love what I do. I find immense fulfillment, and I'm just learning to increase my capacity and influence one day at a time. And so in a nutshell, that's who I am for this first episode. What can I offer you? All right, I'm going to be able to provide you with a lot of insights, truth bombs, realizations, clarity, direction, guidance, wisdom, knowledge, education, skills, and techniques that you're going to need to find wholeness again in your life. And the reason I'm so confident that I'm going to be able to do this for you is because I know, sense, and feel I can do that for myself. And I have done that for myself. And in my practice with my clients, I see beautiful results consistently. I feel fully aligned in helping others mentally, emotionally. And so I am within my calling here. And it took me the longest time to even have the confidence to see that in myself and to fully own that and to value that in myself. So today I do. And that's why I confidently come to you today with this series on helping you with bulimia. Why am I making this series? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I want to help you. I didn't have someone to show me the way. YouTube wasn't like this. We didn't have the internet so connected, making the world such a beautiful, smaller place so we can connect with what we truly need. That wasn't around when I was really in the midst of my struggles with bulimia, but now it's here. And so I want to reassure you, you're not going crazy when you go to maybe your a health specialist, and it feels like only one part of the problem is being addressed with bulimia, because there is still shortcomings in our wellness model, in our mainstream wellness model. And so just know that you will get the whole picture. You just need to put the quest out. Start watching these videos for one, because I'm going to put the whole picture out for you. It's not just about treating the body. It's not just about talk therapy. You have to embrace your shadows. You have to do shadow work. You have to walk through the darkness and see it and illuminate it and look at it for it to be dissolved in the light of observation. And this is where I didn't understand. And there's a lot of band-aiding in the wellness industry for bulimia. And I'm not going to encourage that. I'm going to get straight to the point here. And a big part of what pulled me out of this endless cycle of pain was shadow work. So I'm going to be talking about shadow work probably a fair bit, and I'm going to explain what that is for those who have no idea. A big part of it is inner child work as well. A lot of the root issue for those with bulimia is early childhood traumas. So I'm going to address that through this series. And this is what I specialize in with clients as well. So I'm going to be able to offer all of this as a wellness model that I hope is fully integrated, and I feel it will be for you. And I was afraid to do this because, as you might imagine, putting yourself out there and admitting that you had a very shameful eating disorder for most of your life is freaking scary. Excuse my French. I was very afraid to be vulnerable because part of how we survive as a bulimic is we put up walls and we toughen up and we close down our emotions and we cut off our ability to read the subtle messages from our body. We shut down our nervous system. We shut down inside. And we can't be vulnerable in that state. You cannot be vulnerable when you shut down and protect yourself and stay small and afraid. And so I had to admit this in myself. I had to admit that I was protecting myself with walls and missing out on the healing that needed to be taking place within my emotional body. And so this is why it's taken until now for me to actually put myself out there in the public and talk about the debilitating condition I had and how it does come with a lot of shame and guilt. And I was made to feel that way by my culture. And I'm sure you relate to that. It's still shameful. And so, yeah, this has been difficult for me to come out and share this stuff. So just know that it has taken some courage to be built up here to be able to share this stuff with you. So what I'll be covering in this series is control, anxiety, lying and shame and guilt, triggers, escapism, relationships, safety, sexuality, enablers, other people in our lives, alcoholism, victim consciousness, self-worth, self-love, trying to fit in, big one, social anxiety, enmeshment and self-autonomy, boundaries, huge one, being stuck in our heads, all up here in the mind, limiting beliefs, admitting the problem in the first place, calling for love. This is essentially what we're doing with bulimia, is a call for love. We're starved of love. Trauma and healing, early childhood, inner child, shadow work, spirituality, fun and play in our lives, self-nurture, family obligations, romance, self-identity, prescription medication, physical health, the nervous system, personal values and truths, fear of death, heart opening, empathy, and being highly sensitive. You will benefit by watching my series, and you'll learn through someone who has been through the start of this debilitating condition and out the other side. I want you to feel seen, heard, understood. Being a bulimic, it's very lonely. Take it from me, I know. It's shameful, it's lonely. It's exhausting. It's so exhausting, guys. Just know that I understand how exhausting it is. You're not alone. I want you to know that, okay? And this is not forever either. I know it sometimes feels like that, but it's not, okay? I'm going to help you find ways that perhaps you haven't been offered yet, some help. So please subscribe to this channel and keep an eye out. I believe I'll be putting a weekly episode out, and I will cover all of the areas I just talked about in depth and from my own authentic experience. This is going to be coming from me, from my heart, from my vulnerability, from my experience, my wisdom, my skills, my education. And please, I know that this will be of great benefit to you. So if you suffer from bulimia, or you know someone close to you that you love that is suffering from bulimia, please subscribe and follow along with these episodes. See you in the next episode. Bye.